sa inyong lahat. It's really a pleasure to be with you here amidst educators and hopefully trendsetters and breakers of rules. I entitled my presentation today, Learning 2.0, the end of schooling and the beginning of learning. You know, an author once said that we normally run and manage our life according to a script, whether it is a personal life or whether it's a corporate life or whether it's a national life. We normally follow a script. It's like a drama. And like any other organization or human institution, the education system has for the longest time followed a certain script.
Students start on the belt at an early age and progress through the grades. At each grade, they receive new sets of knowledge and skills. Within grades, students move through time units, such as quarters. Within quarters, students move from one course to another. Within courses, students move through topics. At any step in the process, students might be sent back to earlier stages if they fail to meet quality control standards. The hope is that by the time they graduate, all students will be finely polished, certified products ready for the next stages in their lives. Are there problems with conveyor belt models of formal schooling? Problems that reduce motivation and learning? Many argue that the answer is yes.
This is exactly what we have been following for the longest time. Our educational system fundamentally follows and mimics a factory floor, mass production. You know, everything is well defined. Classes starts at 8 o'clock. You run one class 45 minutes. At 10 o'clock, you have break time. 30 minutes break. 12 o'clock, you have lunch. 1 o'clock, they come back. 4 o'clock, you go home. And that happens 5 times a week. 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 10 months. Lesson plans are well prepared. It has to be finished within 3 days. Set of time defined in semesters. That's how it is. What are the merits of this system? Well, basically, it's a well-controlled system. It's a system that is predictable. And for those of us who are control freaks, this is the default system we will be going to do in the educational system. Unfortunately, do we need to follow that script when the realities today are totally different? For example, the global reality today is demanding a lot of innovations from local economies because of rapid social and technological changes. Countries can compete if they innovate fast as the reality presents themselves. Economies and corporations will survive to the degree that they're able to innovate. The premium on social and cognitive skills to work flexibly and creatively is highly prized today. There is easy access of information from many sources, and there is pervasiveness of the web and mobile phones. 1 in every 5 Filipinos has a mobile phone. I don't think we have a digital divide in the Philippines, because you can push information at any time, anywhere, through mobile phones. Even just before the presentation here, I was trying to access a website through my iPhone because I wanted to verify the author or the reference site of my presentation. Another emerging reality today is that young people don't like to be taught upon today. They don't want to be passive recipients of information. They want to participate in knowledge building. They want to participate in the learning activity. How many of you here are students? Can you raise your hand? And how many of you here have Friendster accounts? Practically all of them. How many of you here teachers have Friendster accounts? How many of you here have blogs? See, 2 months ago, there was a research from a New York-based research center trying to see who is the greatest, what country has the greatest user of social networks. Guess who is the greatest user of social networks in the world today? The Filipinos. It debunks the notion that Filipinos cannot work online. That they need always to have a face-to-face interaction to be able to interact with other people. And almost 80% of users of social networks are young people. And mind you, they are creating their own content online. They don't want just to be users of information. They want to be active participants in the construction of knowledge and information in the world. And if our methodology today is still the transmission method from A to B, our students, no wonder, will lose interest in our class. Teachers who can teach today to get children through national tests are given the best recognition. Unfortunately, achievement in national tests seems to be the end goal of our national education today. And even parents are pushing their kids to have high test scores. Performance in standardized test exams is not simply a measure of achievement, but the system's goal. Do we have to follow the script when more and more boys are dropping out of school than girls, as it was pointed out by Mike earlier? And they drop out. Study shows that they drop out not primarily because of poverty, but because they're bored in school. I challenge any of educator here, go at any given point of time to the malls. There you will see all kinds of uniforms. And where? Where will you see those all kinds of uniforms? In the game arcade. Or in the computer shops where kids play multi-user games. The pervasive of information and communication today enables us to access information anywhere, anyhow, anytime. Do we have to follow the script when an education system designed to impart a fixed body of knowledge and skills from top down seems hopelessly slow, controlled, and cumbersome for a world in which information is emerging the whole time on the web? The rate by which information is published on the web is so rapid. Do we have to follow the script when children can teach themselves skills with minimal direct intervention from a teacher? I'd like to show you and share with you two experiences, one here and one in India. There was this professor by the name of Dr. Mitra from NIIT. NIIT is the largest information communication technology training provider of India. The university is located beside the slum area. And Dr. Mitra literally created and broke a wall, a hole on a wall on the fence. That's why the project is Hole in a Wall. What did they do? In that wall, in that hole, they put a PC with the screen outside. Okay? And this is in a slum area, a very depressed area in India. Keyboard, mouse, a webcam with internet access. He wanted to see whether kids without any professional intervention or assistance can teach themselves first how to use the computer and secondly, learn new skills. They were amazed. On the second day only, on the second day alone, kids were able to learn how to surf the net. And not only the net, were able to cut and paste, copy and paste from the net into a document with no intervention from a teacher. They call that minimal intervention education. I don't think our kids are that stupid. And I don't think our kids are that less privileged and challenged than these kids in that slum area in India. That's why I have always been a strong proponent in DepEd to scrap the computer literacy program because it's a useless of time, it's a useless time, and it's a useless energy. Why? Because kids can teach themselves information technology better than the teachers can teach themselves. Yes. You know, 5 years ago, or rather 4 years ago, there was a congress, education congress in Bacolod, and I presented. And after the presentation, I had lunch with my sister-in-law and my nephew and my niece. At that time, I had an XDA 02, where you can write and you can draw. And when my nephew saw it, Tito, what's that? And I said, well, this is a PDA. What is a PDA? It's a phone and a computer at the same time. Oh, it's a computer, so I can also draw there? And I said, yes. And he told me, show me. So I got the PDA, opened the application for drawing and started to draw a tree. And the next thing he asked me was, let me. My sister-in-law said, no. I said, okay, here it is. I closed the application. He opened the application and did exactly what I did in front of him. At the time, he was simply 4 years old. See, our kids can learn with minimal assistance if they're given that environment to explore and to experiment by themselves. Another very good example is an experience that we have with one of our schools, with our teachers in Mindanao. We have been involved in teaching teachers in the public schools on how to integrate technology in their teaching practice. And not just teach technology, but really transform their practice by embedding technology in their learning activity. I'd like to show to you an example of a student work in English, particularly journalism, and the project was how to create and develop an evening news report. That's the name of the teacher.
This program is brought to you by Kiri. Kiri made it.
This is third year high school, a public school, in Butuan.
Headlines: 50 centavos rollback for gasoline price and transportation fare rate. PNP heightens alert for possible terrorist attack. DOH warns public in eating street foods. And for Showbiz Watch, aggressive audio reveals their story of success.
I am Open and this is your ANHS News Block. And for our top stories, a 50 centavos rollback can be gained in all board refilling station to transfer group mom over fare hike. Updates from Isaiah Phillips. Isaiah.
4.78 gasoline per liter in Pulse in our refilling station is likely lower at 50 centavos rollback compared from previous weeks. Peso has shown significant economic value to fuel rate percentage. The government urged the transport groups to reduce fare rate system. For a 35-year-old jeepney driver, Reynaldo, he himself not satisfied with the rollback.
A whole evening news report. These kids never studied multimedia. They never studied broadcasting. How did they know the format of an evening news report? By watching, observing CNN, watching local news, and that's how they learn. The teachers simply provide them some guidelines. And along the way, they learn a lot of competencies in English. Not only competencies in English, but competencies in working collaboratively together. Do we have to follow the script when we know that cognitive science tells us that kids learn in different ways? You know, our classrooms are designed biased for women. Why? Have you observed around the postures of men? How many times they change their sitting position in a period of 10 minutes? Why? Because the physique of men at the back is not as heavy and strong as the physique of women. Women can sit better and longer and pay attention on the chair than men. You are teachers here. You have boys and girls in front of you. Who are the first ones to slouch? Boys. Why? Because their physique are not accustomed to that rigid chair. And yet, we want everyone to sit down at the same time, sit down straight, listen to the teacher. Hello. No wonder many of the boys really get bored. Another thing, we know for a fact, well, it has been discussed in multiple intelligences, many students learn in different ways. I learn by getting first the big picture. You know, that's how I learn. Tell me the big picture. I sort out the rest. Don't tell me details. I'll sleep in front of you. That's how I learn. I learn by moving around. By standing up sometimes. You can't put me in a chair for 30 minutes trying to type for a presentation. No, you can't. I can't do that. I almost got kicked out from the seminary because of that. Why? In the seminary, at 5 o'clock, you wake up. 5:30, we have meditation. Everybody on the church. You have 200 of you there. And since I was a little bit taller than the rest, I was behind. I was at the back. And behind me were all my superiors. And guess what? After 5 minutes, I was dozing to sleep. And every month, that was always the remark to me. And I told my rector, please, allow me to move around. And good, my rector was open-minded at the time. That's why I'm still around. See, this is the realities in basic education. We pay little attention to individual differences. We put them in the same mold, and yet students learn in different ways. We present our material in the same manner, and most of our textbooks are biased only to textual graphical learners and logical thinkers, and not to those with kinesthetic, audio, and the others. You know, I have a nephew. Okay, this is a classic example. I have a nephew, the son of my elder brother, my eldest brother. My eldest brother is very good in math. And he's always been in top 5 of his class when he was in the seminary. And of course, my nephew is the eldest. He projects himself to his son, and he wants his son to be also good in math. And he wants his son to be also good in, to be also in the top 5 or top 10. But my nephew is not always in the top 10. Oh yeah, he's in the top 10, but from the bottom. He has no failing grades. Okay? But my brother is not satisfied. One time, that was a year ago, when I came back from the US after a work trip there, I brought with me construction sets for DNA. Construction sets for chemical molecules and DNA construction. Okay? And so they visited me in my office in Don Bosco, and he saw it, and he said, Tito, can I play with this? And I said, oh, go ahead. You know, I was so amazed. In a matter of half an hour, he was able to construct 5 complicated molecular models, which I could not even get one in 2 hours. Why? And I saw, and I told my brother, look, your kid is intelligent. He has a very good spatial and mechanical intelligence. Don't push him to be mathematical intelligent. So from that time on, my brother provided him all the tools. Bought him animation software, sketching. I bought him also sketching pad. Now at second year high school, in Don Bosco, Tarlac, he's doing interactive websites on his own. And he's earning a lot of money. No, this is where I think one of the weaknesses of the script that we've been following for the longest time. We all lump everyone in the same place, the same time. Why not revise and change the script? And what are the things we need to revise and basically change? We should give equal importance to creativity in the same way that we give importance to numeracy and literacy. We have been always hammering literacy and numeracy in the public school system, in the private school system, and yet we hardly hear people putting creativity as a mainstream competency that our students need to achieve in their formative years. You know, one reason about this is that I've been inspired by the push for creativity because of the book that I read a month ago, The Flight of the Creative Class by Richard Florida. His thesis was very, very simple. He said today, the United States is losing its competitive edge in the global economy, not because it has no resources, but because creative talent is no longer welcome in America. And creative talent, more than that, is flying out of America to other countries. That's the challenge for us. You know, those of you here who are in engineering, I think we have to revise our engineering courses and focus on design rather than on manufacturing. We cannot compete with India in manufacturing. Singapore realized that long time ago. And so they said, okay, we will not be the center of manufacturing in Asia anymore, but we will be the center of design. We will be the center of design. We'll be the center of creative arts and talents in Asia. And how many of our animators are now in Singapore? And mind you, the creative class are the ones creating wealth for other people. I am not a very strong fan of exporting labor to other countries. Why? Because of a heavy social cost. But if we have to export labor to other countries, I think we should export labor and talent that are on the top of the food chain rather than on the lowest of the food chain. In that book, he said there are five categories of working classes or working professionals. One is expert thinking, require creativity and expert problem solving. This is especially for design. Diagnosing illnesses, creating new dishes from fresh ingredients. How many of our schools have introduced culinary arts even at an early stage? Complex communication, high-paying jobs in design, innovation, motivation, or management of others that require face-to-face interaction. You know, routine cognitive tasks. There's another one here. Routine cognitive tasks. Routine cognitive tasks that follow well-defined logical rules, such as work in call centers. We're losing our edge here. In the latest what they call this publication of the Black Book of BPOs, the Philippines is not even in the top 10 choice for BPOs. South America is giving us a run for our money. Even the small-town America is giving us a run for our money. East Europe is giving us a run for our money. That's why we need to be able to develop new graduates that are really on the top. Creativity is giving And the last one is non-routine manual tasks. These are that requires optical recognition and fine muscle control, like therapies, massage therapies. You cannot export that. Okay. But what I'm saying here is that when you embed creativity as a requirement for competency in the curriculum, we need also to be able to accept mistakes as part and parcel of learning. The problem with formal school is we have stigmatized mistakes. We have stigmatized mistakes. The teachers here, what color of ball pen do you use for when the answer is wrong? Red. Kasi mali. So students, when they enter formal school, they always get the wrong framework that I have to be correct all the time. But if you have to be creative, mistakes is part and parcel of learning. And I guess this is one of the things that we have to change drastically. Why not revise and change the script where learning spaces are designed in an open classroom environment to accommodate different learning styles? Instead of calling it learning centers, which I find a little bit physically bound, I would rather call it create learning spaces. A learning space could be a mall. A learning space could be also at home. A learning space could also be in a barangay. A learning space could be in a formal school. But at any given point of time, a person, a learner who has a particular learning style can go to one learning space so that his learning process is a lot more effective and faster. Curriculum designed around themes, projects, or real-life problems that provides platform for collaborative, creative construction of knowledge. Problem-based and project-based learning. You know, I've been a consultant for e-learning, and when I help professors transition their classroom practice to e-learning practice, I always ask them this question: what are the 10 questions that your students need to answer in your class, that if they have not answered these questions, they have not learned in your class? And what are the 10 learning experiences that your students need to experience in your class, that if they have not experienced those learning experiences, they would have not learned anything in your class? And you know, it's so hard. When I ask them, I get blank stares. Why? Because by default, they always follow the textbook. By default, we always follow the textbook. But if we build our curriculum around projects, deliverables that students need to create either alone as an individual or with others, then we know exactly what the person can do and what he can't do at the end of the school year. You give me, let's say, what year are you now? Third year. Physics. At the end of the year, you get 87 in physics. What does it mean? What does it mean? And this is the reason why there has been no improvement from year in, year out, because when a student goes at third year, chemistry pala, sorry. Chemistry, right? Oh, chemistry. This is the problem. You know, the student goes to the next teacher, he gives him the card. I got 85 in English. What does it mean? I got 1.5 in philosophy. Okay, what does it mean? It doesn't tell me what I can't or can do. And that's why if we have to go on evaluating students, we need to go into what we call portfolio management. This is not something new, but something that we have to impose. Every year, the students have this portfolio of works so that he carries that with him to the next teacher, and the next teacher can see, okay, this is your portfolio of works, these are the things you can do, these are the things you can't do so far. We should give more importance to that, equally importance to that, than also the performance of students in standardized tests. I'm okay with standardized tests. But what I'm against standardized tests, it's we make it an absolute criterion of student performance, which is not. Which is not. And lastly, a network of learning communities to support various relationships that impact learning. This is what we're doing today. We have developed, and this is something that I'd like to share with you, we have developed 11 e-learning materials in 11 TechVoc technologies. We have developed it first on CD materials, and we're distributing that for free actually. No cost. But what we're doing now is we have created a network of e-learning schools from Mindanao to Visayas and Luzon. And what we did was we created learning objects. Binakbak namin yung materials. And we developed small learning objects in different TechVoc in these areas. And we're hosting it in a server. And we're putting it online for free. We're putting it online for free. thanks to SMART, they're giving us 2 servers for this. We have an LMS, and it is for everyone to access. My point is this: open access, open education. Why? There are students, if you ask them to pay right away, imbudo ka agad yan eh. Di ba? Those who can access it are those only who can pay. Whereas if you open it, you have a whole universe. Some of them can pay later on. Where do they pay? Since we have a network of partner schools from Luzon to Mindanao, they go to these partner schools for certification. Supposing I'd like to take and be a master welder. I go online, anywhere. It may be in the mall, it may be at home, it may be in the barangay hall. Fine, I don't pay. I want to be certified, I go to our accredited center, and that's where you get practicum for 3 months instead of 6 months, and that's where you pay. And you pay a minimal fee. Why? Instead of paying 6 months, you pay only 3 months. Why am I saying this? Because we in Don Bosco, we have been in TechVoc for the longest time. And we have trained more than 70,000. And most of them are employed. And yet, most of them cannot go up the professional ladder because TechVoc lang sila. So we're providing this avenue for them to get certified so that eventually they can go on BS, technician course, or engineering. That's the vision that we have. And for those of you who are willing to join us, be free. We can offer you the materials, do with it as you like, improve on it, fine. It's like Wikipedia. That's our intention. We put the materials online, it's for free. If the schools want to improve on it, fine. The only reason is that they don't charge anything on their material when they improve it. And it is for everyone to share. A network of learning communities. Another thing that, and this is what we're doing also with SMART, we have trained almost 200 teachers last summer on how they could develop multimedia materials and upload that online. Last story I'd like to share with you before I go. How many of you have gone to Batanes? Batanes is one of the most beautiful place. You should go before you die. Put that in your bucket list, okay? It's beautiful. In Batanes, there is a fisherman's village there. This has been set aside by the, I think, provincial government. It's a village. The fishermen go there only during fishing season. And that is normally from February to early June. Okay? That's the only their fishing season. And they catch a special fish they call dorado. Okay? It's a very special fish. There are 2 particular things that I've learned about their practice. One is that they don't sell dorado during fishing season. You can't buy dorado fresh during fishing season from this fishing village. Why? Because they believe that if they sell the dorado during the fishing season, the dorado will go away. Second, which for me, the real message or the real content of the story is this. At the end of the fishing season, the whole village throws a feast. Everybody is invited. Okay? And during that feast, the catch of the whole season is equitably divided to everyone who participated in the fishing expedition. From the person who pushed the boat, from the person who pulled the owner of the boat, the owner of the net, equitably distributed. At the end of the day, they go back home to the main town happy. How many of our kids know that in their civica? Hardly. And for most of you, I believe this is the first time you know that. A real example of community sharing in the 21st century of consumerism. Our what they call this, our learning activities would truly be alive if we are able to connect these learning spaces, and so that they could share real stories about their content, about their place. Last is that teachers are architects and managers of learning environments rather than purveyors of information and content. I think teachers need to really change their paradigm. Rather than teaching to, they have to be architects and designers of learning environment. This is how the script will change. The place, the spaces, the time, the pace, the styles of learning, technologies of learning. And lastly, as a parting question, do our kids need to go to school 6 hours a day, 5 days or 6 days a week to get educated in the 21st century? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Jomar. Yeah, Q&A. Father, don't leave yet. Father, sa lahat ng sinabi ninyo, and I know that you speak about this with experience since you've been to many different schools, how possible is it really to get from a traditional way of doing things to the way that you talk about here?
I think it's one thing. One is that you have a teacher who is sort of a rebel. One. My principle was always like this. As kanina, break the rules. You know why? Because it's a lot easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So, from the religious community context, I always break the rules. I break the rules, ask permission later, and ask forgiveness if necessary. In education, it's the same. In education, it's the same. You've got to have people who are willing to break the rules. And unless you have to have a mentality of the wild, wild west. No, there has to be, you have to be a trendsetter. And that's how it is. I mean, secondly, I think to make it work, you need to have very good leadership.
This is on what level, Father? Principal,
Even at the
administrator,
principal level.
teacher?
Principal level. And thirdly, you've got to have a good community support. That's what we have found. We've found in our experience in Cebu, in Tayud, in other public schools, where there's a very strong community support and where the community understands what the whole vision of learning is all about and what the school is all about and what the roles are. It's possible. It's possible. And of course, political will, you know. Sometimes you just have to ram it.
That seems to be your best trait, Father, to ram things through. Diba? But ito, Father, I guess we don't have time anymore. No? Last question lang. We have numerous schools that still do the traditional method. We probably have teachers and principals who probably have heard of the different things we've talked about today or seem to like it, but probably don't know what the first step is. Diba? Parang usually the first step is the most difficult one to take. No? What would be your suggestion on how to shift things in their particular locality?
You know, the underlying questions of what we have been discussing since 1 o'clock is basically, what is the vision of learning and education in the 21st century? What does it mean to be educated in the 21st century? That's the fundamental question I believe we need to confront ourselves at a local level, at the community level, as well as at the national level. I'm a very strong proponent of investing in technology in order to transform education system. I like the idea of cyber ed, but I don't like the way they wanted to do it. Why? Because it was bereft any what viable educational vision in the 21st century. It was driven more by technology than vision, and that's what we need. People who are courageous enough to say, why not do it another way?
Or at least courageous enough
Or
to admit that things
why
aren't working
can't-
well.
Why can't we do it another way? Well, when I was a principal, I had two proposals that my superiors wanted to shoot down. One was, I wanted to put up a CAD laboratory, computer-aided design lab, for high school. At the time, the investment that was about 15 years ago, the investment would have cost us about 15 to 30 million. And my superior said, why are you investing? I said, in high school, the college students don't even have this. I said, why not? So we went on. Another one is that since we are a technical school, I wanted to teach C++ and C language even in third year. We took away basic programming. And my superiors were saying, why are you doing that? I said, why not? And our kids were very successful. They like the challenge. You know, it's sometimes you just need to have persons who are,
Okay.
push it.
Any questions? Okay, kung wala, thank you very much, Father Jomar. Maraming salamat. All right. I'm really hoping that the gaping hole there in the middle are people who just couldn't wait and started to do some changes already. Kumbaga, sobrang na-inspire, hindi nakahintay, ginawa na kaagad. That's why there's a